been said a couple of times, and I'm sure you know, Dan will say the same when he comes up. But obviously, the market is changing. The past 2 years have been interesting, to say the least. I guess regardless of what side of the desk you sit on, you know, organizations were really affected by the economy, but really since this past September, we've seen a huge uptick. Companies are turning around. They're starting to hire again. And I think HR professionals have a lot of pressure to do that the right way, to do it a cost-effective way. And so one thing that we're seeing is a lot of organizations are starting to take a look at the way that they hire, what resources they're using, how they're going about doing that, what the cost is. And people are really trying to be smarter and more innovative in the way that they do that. It's all around us. You know, I don't know if I took a quick look at the list. I know we have a lot of directors and executives of HR in the room, a couple in recruiting, but even, you know, a few years ago, you would never text message somebody that you were, you know, necessarily interviewing or considering hiring. And these days, sometimes that's the only way for us to get to people. So, you know, technology is really taking over, and you know, it's something that's happening quickly, and there are a lot of resources out there to learn about them and figure out what is best for you. But it's certainly you know, something that if you're not doing, you really should start to figure out you know, where you might be missing out and what might work for you. Clients are being very selective, as you can imagine. We're just coming out of this. Since November, we've seen a significant increase in hiring, and from where I sit focusing on HR placement, we've seen a huge demand in recruiters. So companies are hiring again. And one of the unique things that we're hearing that you know, really 2 years ago, we never had requested, it was never a prerequisite, but almost every client that's calling me saying I need a contract recruiter is saying I need a social media super user. And so, you know, of course, the first question I ask is, define that for me. What does that mean? Because it does mean different things to different people. But do they use LinkedIn? How many connections do they have? You know, are they familiar with Twitter? Are they using Facebook? Are they using blogs? And it's just so interesting because 2 years ago it was, do they have their, you know, SPHR, or do they have their AIR certification? Can they do Boolean searches? And literally, some of my clients will not even consider someone unless they are very comfortable with LinkedIn. And that's because the companies are recognizing that the search market is very different, and that they really need someone that is going to be able to be on these resources and find the right candidates, especially in some niche areas. So that's just kind of an introduction. I'll try and cover the, you know, the job seeking aspect, as well as you know, being a hiring manager or running HR. But you know, I think the important thing is finding a common ground with people that are searching. And as we've already heard, you know, people out there are Googling, they're on Facebook, they're on LinkedIn, and you know, if you're there as well, you're going to have you know, significantly higher chance of running into them and finding the appropriate people. They also want passive candidates, and I was talking to a couple of you beforehand, and you know, the tough thing is that people who have been working for companies, you know, maybe it's, you know, engagement issues because they had to take a pay cut, but they're not really posting their resumes on Monster or Career Builder right now because they're nervous. They, you know, they see the market picking up, they're interested, but there's also a huge risk of posting their information out there. So I think a lot of people are confidentially using LinkedIn and their network to put their feelers out, and hoping that someone finds them as well. So you know, that's something to keep in mind. There's still a lot of anxiety about making moves, but you know, if you have the right people in your organization that know how to use these tools, you know, they can successfully find people, you know, and vice versa. If you're actively searching, you know, that's another great way to reach out to people. Before we jump into the details about that, just to touch on professional presentation, just as the advice that we would give any job seeker, arrive early to an interview, make sure that you're wearing a suit, that's your professional presentation. There's a very small window you have to make a first impression when you're meeting someone. Any kind of social media is really the same thing. I think, Lindsay, you had touched upon it before. Anything you put out there is out there forever. So regardless of whether you're a client or a candidate, you need to really be sure that anything you write is there, and people can Google things, and it's just strange sometimes what you can type in and what you can find. And if there's recruiters in the room, you can do some digging on people that are interviewing with the company and find out a lot of personal information about them before you even meet them these days. So one thing to remember is just to be very professional about that. Especially Facebook. You can, I think Facebook I sometimes use for recruitment, and people are starting to use it more and more. But I do think that it still remains to be more of a personal relationship networking site versus professional. I think professional would probably be the number one would be LinkedIn or Twitter right now. But again, people are looking at that. If anybody has seen it now on Facebook, you can actually connect your Facebook profile to your Twitter profile. Has anyone seen that feature? And so I actually didn't realize it until I had a client of mine give me a call, had a contract recruiter working for her, and said, so-and-so is doing a fantastic job, great. The picture on LinkedIn is a little casual. This is a professional site, so, I think had maybe like a Red Sox hat backwards and, beer in his hand or something. And so, requested that either the picture came down or a more professional picture was put up. This person also had a link to their Twitter account, and on their LinkedIn account, they were using it professionally to recruit and market the company. Their Twitter account, they were using for both. They were posting, they were technical recruiters, they were posting positions and getting a good response, but additionally, they were also saying what they were doing last Saturday night, and I think, again, in that picture, had a martini in their hand. And so, just a side note before we, go into some of the details is, you have to be really careful about that, and I'm certainly not a legal professional, so I would, defer to whoever your legal counsel is, but you do have to be careful. I mean, if someone is recruiting for your organization, they are representing your company, and any communication, if they have their company posted to their site, does fall back to your organization. So something to keep in mind, whether you're using it yourself or you have some of your staff using it. Again, and some of the people that have more of a legal background will be able to give you a little bit more advice there, but I definitely would recommend at least taking a look at that. So I personally have used LinkedIn the most. Our organization uses LinkedIn the most. We do continue to use some of the job boards, but as I had said earlier, people are really more passive seekers. And these days, clients really want specific profiles. They're looking for certain industries, years of experience. They're looking for, whether they have the social media or certain certifications. And really, that's a great way to be able to do that. You can do some really advanced searches on LinkedIn. I've had one of the most difficult searches over the past year where it was a sales training manager, had to be out of pharmaceuticals, also had to have a background in neurology, had to have degrees and certifications, and you can type in some really interesting keywords, and I came up with only 4 candidates, but after networking with them, I eventually was able to get to the right profile. It took about 6 months, but it was successful. And if any of you are sitting in areas where they're very difficult searches and they're very niche searches, I think that's a pretty powerful tool, so it's something to keep in mind.